The departures hall hums like a refrigerator someone forgot to shut. Cold air biting my sunburnt shoulders as the board flickers. Delayed. Final call. People move in lines that don't quite commit to being lines. I'm standing in front of the glass partition at the Santorini airport, light bouncing off the floor like spilled milk, with a printed boarding pass that the airline supervisor has just held up to the ceiling light and pronounced already flown. Next to me, my mother pinches the bridge of her nose the way she does when she doesn't want to cry in front of strangers. My daughter presses a cold water bottle to her cheek, leaving an oval of condensation. A security officer in a navy polo, name tag flipped backward, watches us with polite boredom. The contradiction is simple and absurd. I'm here salt on my wrists from a quick hand wash. It's the taste of coffee I didn't have time to finish, but according to the system, I flew last night. He taps the screen again. Our record shows checked in and boarded at 1940. Ms. Khan, he says in a tone that makes the statement mean nothing and everything. The ink in my boarding pass is still crisp. The time stamp on the corner 8:54 winks at me like a dare. And because life likes a cruel joke. The printed boarding pass bears a dark blue stamp I recognize. The hotel's concierge seal. The playful dolphin outline they use on luggage tags and maps. This is the shock. A piece of paper I watched printed 5 minutes ago. Stamped verified is claiming a ghost version of me, went through 2 doors and didn't look back. My reputation is the stake that matters, not online, not in a review score, but in front of my family who have watched me solve tangled things for years. This is the trip I promised to run like a gentle operation, not a campaign, not a case. The supervisor lifts a hand, palm down. If you could step aside, he says. We have to process final boarding. In the next minutes, you'll see how a stamped piece of paper can become a subpoena in miniature. How a smile at a desk becomes a script. How a dolphin seal becomes a lever. How I dismantled a false departure and put my family on a plane without raising my voice. The smell of jet fuel swims through the hall when the doors open and close, a presence like a warning. Somewhere behind the check-in counters, a metal drawer slides with the tooth scrape of something locked. A toddler drops a plush donkey and begins to sob. My mother squeezes my elbow, and I can feel the faint tremor that travels through her wrist when she's angry on my behalf. Give me 10 minutes, I tell her, and the cold air pinches goosebumps onto my forearms. Don't move. Drink water. Keep the receipts. At the hotel 12 hours earlier, the concierge had leaned into our space like an actor finding his light. The lobby was cool in that deliberate way that sells relief. He'd placed a cobalt blue envelope on the marble and patted it twice, a soft drum roll. For your convenience, he said. He had an accent you couldn't pin to a map and eyes that flitted quickly from faces to luggage tag codes. He offered a bottle of still water with the label carefully peeled off. I already checked you in online for tomorrow, he continued. Your boarding passes will print no problem. You're like family. He stamped a sample printout with the hotel seal, the dolphin beaming mid-darked backflip. In that moment, the only thing that tripped a wire was the phrase itself, for your convenience. There are phrases that make my neck hairs lift. For your convenience, per our policy. Trust me. I tucked the cobalt envelope into my tote with the same care I use for contracts. A pen lay next to it, hotel-branded cobalt, to match with a tiny nick in the clip like a tooth mark. I pocketed it without thinking. Now, standing in the unlovely fluorescence of the airport, I close my eyes and breathe in the scent of dust and citrus cleaner and someone's perfume, a sweet thing fighting with sanitizer. I've spent my career in operations and investigations, supply chains, vendor compliance, the way receipts form a skeleton under the skin of a day. I know the sound of a drawer closing on something you aren't meant to see. I know a script when I hear one. I also know that systems can be reversed, rescinded, revoked. That entries can be audited, redacted, time-stamped, certified. That if I stay cool enough to read every sign by its clause number, I can unwind a mess before it becomes a story the wrong people get to tell. I step back from the counter and map the room like a chessboard. The alley of check-in desks, each with a small printer that smells faintly like toner and warm plastic. The oversized baggage belt, where a man in a straw hat argues with a woman about whether a surfboard is sports equipment. The glass door to the duty-free, where a rack of scarves throws a muted rainbow. The frosted window of a tiny office behind the counters with a crooked certificate. Civil aviation hung slightly low on the left. There's a CCTV dome camera above the secondary screening lane. And an unassuming gray box that hums like a sleeping cat on a shelf where the network routers live. The hotel's stamp on my paper is a joke that isn't funny yet. I ask the supervisor, who can attest boarding reconciliation. Duty manager? He blinks, bored to cautious. I am the duty manager. Great, I say, and smile like we're on the same team, and this is a small puzzle. Not a problem. Then you can pull the manifest movement log for last night. And the DC's footprint for passenger con, M boarding, scan time, gate camera angle. He tilts his head. People hear their language. It settles them. You want to file a complaint? I want to correct a record, I say, soft. And we need to board. But let's do both. He gains time by asking for documents. I slide the cobalt blue envelope out and remove our passports. My mother's laminated prescription card, the hotel's business card with the dolphin. The folded copy of the boarding pass, stamped verified. The envelope smells faintly of time, like someone packed it next to a kitchen window. I set my phone next to it with the airline app open. Refresh time stamp visible. Behind him, someone opens that metal drawer again. The scrape is the same toothy sound I heard last night when the concierge bent down to fetch the welcome chocolates. And his hand hovered a fraction too long over a drawer packed with neat slips and a small rubber stamp. I ask my family to sit by the window that looks out on the tarmac. The light there is good, crisp, true. It turns my daughter's hair into a copper net. There's a breath of sea through the air when the sliding doors stutter open and let in a slice of sun. The crowd noise becomes texture. My mother pushes the last two receipts into my Palm Taxi hotel. Incidentals, and I press them flat with my thumb. The paper holds the heat of her hand. Process, not volume. I won't shout. I'll use process and receipts. I hit record on my phone ambient capture, a habit like fastening a seatbelt. Ms. Khan, the duty manager says we can only reissue if we have authorization. You've already flown according to our system. The paper is a wedge. The blue stamp is the edge. I keep my voice even. Walk with me to your back office, please. You'll need to verify a discrepancy. And we'll want your station's manifests for last night's 1940 departure, Gate C. The door to the tiny office is half glass, frosted at someone's shoulder height. The certificate on the wall behind it reads Greek Civil Aviation Authority in a font that was modern once. A calendar is flipped to the wrong month. On the desk, a silver stapler catches the light like a small fish. He hesitates. I take his pause as a yes and start moving, the way a river starts and the stones make up their minds after. Inside, the air conditioning is a degree too high. My skin prickles. There's a faint smell of onion bagels someone ate hours ago, stale sweet. The printer is warm to the touch when I press my fingers to its cover. Last night, our concierge printed these, I say, and placed the boarding pass copy on the desk. He stamped them with your seal. Today, your system says I boarded yesterday. I need the logs that show who printed boarding passes at the hotel, what authentication they used, and the DCS scan at gate. Because that stamp, I tap the dolphin, appears to be used to validate a print your system recognizes as valid. He frowns. Hotels don't have access to our DCs. They have access to online check-in, I say. And they have printers. Lots of people have printers, he counters. But it's reflex, not conviction. And your company requires two-factor to complete check-in changes. I hold up my phone. Push notification to device on file. SMZ's fallback. None triggered last night. So if the hotel printed a pass that your staff treated as valid, at some point someone scanned a QR that hadn't been properly issued. Or someone marked boarded without a scan. I look at him, eyes soft. Either way, it's not me who moved last night. Let's pull the cameras. He calls someone. I listen to the cadence, the way he uses words that mean I, not we. He says gate C twice and 1940 once. He uses the Greek word for woman, then English for boarding pass. I catch my reflection in the glass, hair pulled back too tight. A line at the corner of my mouth I don't recognize from last week. Wait here, he says, and steps into the corridor, badge bouncing once against his belt. A phone rings. Somewhere a bottle hisses as someone cracks sparkling water. The office. Light is fluorescent to white. It makes the blue of the dolphin stamp look theatrical. I pull out my own assets and lay them on the desk like a magician showing palms. Screenshots of last night's app status at 1940. And again at 21:05 when I confirmed the airport taxi for this morning. The guest folio from the hotel with a line item I'd circled earlier out of habit. Printing assistance complimentary. A photo I'd taken without thinking of the concierge's reflection in the lobby's brass bell. Warped, but clear enough to show the stamp in his hand. A call log from 1922 when he tried to call my phone and I, in the shower, missed it. And the cobalt pen with the nick. I note the router model in this office gray box. Make I know ports blinking like tiny lighthouses. Every system writes a diary in light. When he returns, he brings a colleague with him, a woman with steady eyes and a notebook thicker than a child's forearm. This is Eleni, he says. Compliance. Compliance is a beautiful word in a room like this. It means there are rules and ways to show you followed them or you didn't. It means we can talk in verbs that end in ed. Eleni sits, clicks her pen. You say you did not fly at 1940 yesterday, she says. Accent soft on the T. I was in the hotel restaurant at 1940, I say, arguing whether the anchovies qualify as dinner in my daughter's new taxonomy of fish. The hotel can confirm. We left the property at 8:10 today, taxi receipt here. The hotel offered to print our boarding passes last night and stamp them. This morning, your system shows me as boarded yesterday. If someone used an old QR template, the scan could have been spoofed by anyone with the right wind. If someone in a hurry marked us boarded, the gate camera will show empty air. Eleni is not bored. Her eyes go to the dolphin stamp as if it might get up and swim. We have had, she says slowly, issues with third parties, assisting elderly passengers. Usually, it is benign. Sometimes they encourage upgrades unofficially. Sometimes they say they can make the line faster. She looks at the duty manager, who looks anywhere else. You're here now, she says finally, but the system must be corrected with documentation. We can reissue under exceptional review. But I want to understand what happened. Then let's document, I say. The word tastes like cool water on my tongue. She begins. Things become verbs. She requests the gate video. Clip 4, 1935 to 1950. She pulls the boarding scan log device ID. IP address, time stamped, to confirm whether a scanner was ever pointed at anything with my name attached. She emails the network admin. A polite request with a high priority flag for the router's log of scanning devices at gate C last night. She asks the duty manager to print the reconciliation list. How many seats were physically occupied versus how many were marked boarded? The printer clacks, warm paper sliding out like thin bread. She staples the set, lines up the corners, writes my name in neat block letters. Each piece is a small square in a mosaic that will make a face when we step back. The air conditioning hum clicks off for a moment, silence filling in like water behind a boat. I can hear a wheeled bag roll past in the corridor, the rubber catching on a broken tile. The office smells momentarily like hot plastic and someone's floral hand cream. The light seems to darken when the AC pauses. The room resizes in that way rooms do when attention condenses. Back in the public hall, my mother and daughter sit by the window. The sky outside the glass is a blue so pure it feels fraudulent, like a postcard pretends. My daughter is drawing dolphins with a cobalt pen. The nick in the clip catches on the paper, leaving a small tear she ignores. She looks up when I come out, reading my face like a clock. I put my hand briefly on her hair, feel the heat stored there from the sun we carried in with us. I tell them what I know with as few words as possible. A record says we left before we left. I'm fixing it. My mother nods once the way she used to when I was 10 and announced was going to reorganize the linen closet because the towels were folded wrong. Do you want me to speak to someone? She asks. Not yet, I say. Keep the water. She drinks obediently, the plastic creaking in her hand. The hotel enters the picture when I call the front desk and ask for the concierge. The phone rings 6 times and stops. I call again and a different voice answers with the hotel name and the script phrase. For your convenience. My skin remembers the exact angle of the concierge's smile. It's the way it faltered when I asked whether the envelope was necessary when I could print at the airport. Our printer is more reliable, he'd said. Your phone might die. On the 3rd call, I ask for the manager on duty. A woman comes on the line, voice clipped lemon clean. I give her the facts and my tone, and she meets them with concern that might be real and might be training. We never stamp airline documents, she says, which is untrue. We only stamp for luggage storage. Another small drawer sound in my head. Another script line. I ask her to check the concierge's drawer left of the keyboard, second from top for a dolphin stamp. There's a pause just long enough to be telling. She offers to call me back. I don't give her the time. I'm about to file with civil aviation, I say. We'll have to include your cooperation log. I send an email to the hotel's general manager. The address scraped from the small print of the welcome letter in the cobalt envelope. I see the travel insurance adjuster whose auto-reply I'd saved when we purchased the policy. I BCC a lawyer friend in London who once taught me the clean rhythm of letters that do not over-explain. Subject line, urgent misuse of boarding documents assistance requested. I attach the photo of the concierge's reflection, the stamped sample pass, the receipt's timeline. The email is mercifully brief. Executed, time-stamped, redacted to the parts that matter. Back in the office, Lenny has the first return. The gate camera footage in a beige software window that always looks the same no matter the airport. We watched the clip for the minute when I was allegedly walking through the scanner last night. The camera shows a trickle of passengers, a man in a red shirt balancing a pastry box, a child hopping twice on one foot, a woman carrying a straw bag with pom-poms. It doesn't show me. Eleni clicks, and we watch again. I'm not there. She writes that down. Next, the scan log. Every boarding pass that goes beep is a line in a log, a thin drumbeat of compliance. My name is there, a line stamped 1941 device, ID ending in 6F. Gate C, the column that claims a QR was scanned, shows manual override. The duty manager looks smaller in his chair. Eleni draws a box around those 2 words. Who did override? She asks the room as if it might answer. He clears his throat. Agent Vasilis was on at C. My mind fingers the concierge's phone list as if it were in my hand. A contact I'd glimpsed when he placed his phone face up. A V with a last name that matched his smile more than his badge. People forget the mirror on the brass bell is a camera. People forget reflections tell you where a phone number lives. Call him, Eleni says. Another call. Another cadence. In Greek, then English. Vasilis is off shift. Vasilis is at home. Vasilis did not override. Vasilis used the scanner as instructed. The device ID that scanned the override belongs not to Gate C, but to a portable unit used at the check-in for special services last night. Which special services? Ask. The duty manager tries to shrink into his shirt. Meet and assist, he says, which is a phrase that in the right hands is kindness and in the wrong hands is a toll. Eleni looks at me. We need to correct your status now. Yes, I say. We also need to record that an unauthorized override marked me as boarded, likely to facilitate a side transaction. The hotel stamp on a fake pass is a prop. The thing is, the override. I want a letter certifying reissue for our passports to present at immigration. And I want you to file an incident report with civil aviation and to copy me. I'll be filing a notice with the hotel's ownership entity and the bank that processed their incidentals. I keep my voice level. I'm not angry, I add, and it's true. I'm recording. The paper says I already left. Eleni's mouth tucks the way mouths do when someone decides to respect you. We will correct, she says. I will issue you a certificate of revision and you will still make your flight. We are moving now the way a river moves when it finds the path of least resistance. She types. The printer hums, paper warm again against my palm. She stamps the revalidation with her station seal. She signs with her full name and a number. She takes a photo of the compliance packet for internal audit and forwards me the PDF. She copies the station chief. The duty manager writes a brief apology as if he were writing an absence note. The light above us flickers once and steadies. The air smells faintly of ozone and dust and a ghost of time from the envelope. Processes are beautiful when they click. They feel like a spine aligning. We board. The woman at the gate scans the fresh passes with a small nod that acknowledges more than just a square turning green. The jet bridge is cooler than the hall, a tunnel of humming that vibrates the teeth. My mother exhales the kind that shakes her shoulders. My daughter squeezes my hand twice in our old code. On the plane, the air smells like coffee and plastic and promise. The overhead bins are a lesson in Tetris I have always enjoyed. I slide the cobalt envelope into the seat pocket for a moment and then take it back, not trusting any pocket. Through the small window, I watch the stairs trundle away like insects with too many legs. At cruising altitude, the Aegean looks like a crushed velvet ribbon. My mother unwraps a toffee and offers half to my daughter, who declines because she has decided to become briefly anti-toffee. I open my notebook and begin to draft the letters that will land like stamps. I begin with civil aviation. I cite times and actions. I attach the compliance officer's certificate, the scan logs, the gate video snapshot that shows a hallway where I was not. I request a discreet audit of special services overrides at the station in the past 90 days. I mention no names. I attach device IDs. I copy the airline's compliance office and the Hellenic Police Transport Liaison. Not because I want a criminal case, but because I want the room to resize around the people who used the override like a tip jar. Next, the hotel. I address the general manager and their owner, whose name I find in the footer of the welcome letter alongside a P.O. box and a brand mark. I keep the letter clean and factual. The things I don't say are also recorded in the way the lines meet at right angles. I include the photo of the concierge's reflection as a study in how carelessness lives beside confidence. I request their internal audit logs for guest document handling and printer usage in the past 7 days. I let them know I'll be initiating a chargeback on the incidentals. If we find the concierge accepted compensation for any assistance that compromised a passenger's travel, I attach a timeline with receipts. I write that I expect their cooperation. The sentences end cleanly. No dangling apology to soften the edges. Then the bank. I call the number on the back of the card and speak to a woman named Sonia whose voice could calm fire. I tell her I am initiating a dispute hold pending investigation. I give her the hotel's merchant ID and the transaction IDs. She freezes the relevant amounts, records the case with a code I write down in the margin of my notebook. The pen presses through one page to the next. The nib of the cobalt pen leaves a blue shadow that will be a reminder when I open the notebook months later and catch the smell of paper like bread. I send a message to my lawyer friend that is half a joke and half a request to proof a letter before I dispatch it formally. She replies with a thumbs up and then a string of scalpel emojis that make my daughter tilt her head in disapproval when I explain. The plane hums like all the fridges in all the kitchens of my childhood humming at once. The plastic window is warmer than my hand. The sun on the wing makes a small, fierce flare. Days ripple. We land in Athens and transfer. We reach home 2 days later and the smell of our apartment lavender detergent. Something like the memory of coming makes my throat tighten. The letters go out the next morning at 9:12 from a post office that smells like dust and ink and old stamps. I send copies by email at 9:17. The PDFs named in a convention that even a tired future me will thank me. 4. The 16th of October, 2025 _Santorini _incident _Q. PDF, I log each piece in a small grid. I draw with a ruler, because neatness is a kind of prayer. Within a week, responses begin. Civil aviation acknowledges receipt, assigns a case number, requests a short call. I speak to a man with a kind voice who says they are auditing 3 device IDs and have already found discrepancies in 2. He doesn't say what will happen to the people attached to those numbers, and I don't ask. The airline sends me a formal letter that uses the phrase, manual override in error and process, retraining and apologies for the inconvenience. But the important thing is the attached refund and a note that the station will undergo an unannounced inspection. Eleni writes to thank me for my calm, which makes me laugh in my kitchen in a burst of cumin-scented light. I reply with a line that says, she made it possible to be calm. The words matter. They are receipts in another currency. The hotel takes longer. The general manager writes first, careful and lemon clean again, stating an internal review is underway. I reply asking for date-stamped copies of their guest document handling logs and printer job histories, from 18 o'clock to 21 o'clock on the day in question. There is a pause long enough to be an answer. Then the owner writes, a different tone, more iron, less lemon. He thanks me for bringing this issue to our attention, which always makes me think of dogs and sticks. He attaches a log redactive, but there is enough. A series of print jobs from a front desk terminal at 1931 and 1933 labeled boarding templates. And a camera still of the concierge reaching for a drawer. The dolphin stamp sits in the frame like a joke that's gotten old. The hotel offers a refund of our last night and a voucher I will never use. I ask for the concierge's name to be removed from staff lists pending the outcome of civil aviation's review. The owner says they have separated with the concierge. I write back that I prefer the word terminated for accuracy. He does not reply to that. But he does copy me on a memo that forbids staff from handling boarding documents beyond printing maps and receipts. He does not mention stamps, but the stamp is gone from the desk in a photo attached to the memo as proof of compliance. The drawer has a smudge where it used to live, like a shadow of a fish. A neighbor stops me in the hallway 2 weeks later when I'm carrying groceries and tells me she read something on a travel forum about Santorini and a boarding pass scam. That sounds like my story. Is it you? She asks, curious more than nosy. I wrote to the right people, I say, adjusting the bag that smells like mint and tomatoes. They're fixing it. She nods, eyes soft, as if I said something larger. What we keep is always smaller than what we could say. The stubs of my letters, the case numbers, the blue pen. I keep the cobalt envelope in my desk because objects matter when they recur. I find the dolphin stamp on a shelf in a butcher's shop near the house 2 months later. Sold in a box of office detritus the hotel must have offloaded. I don't buy it. I leave it there like a warning with a smile. I think of Vasily sometimes, if that is even the right V. And whether he said yes to someone because yes felt like a small thing he could pocket before his shift ended. I think of the concierge's smile and the way it never reached the part of the eyes that know the cost of a favor. I think of Eleni's neat block letters and the way she wrote my name as if names were anchors to tie a story to. When the airline's formal audit concludes, a letter arrives on stock so thick it could cut you if you weren't careful. They say personnel action has been taken, which might mean a transfer, might mean a separation, might mean a desk moved from one room to another. They also say that manual overrides will now require a supervisory second signature and a reason code. It's chosen from a list and approved by the duty manager. It is not sweeping reform. It is a hinge that resists a little more. I sign my name in the margin and write the date. I slide the letter into a clear sleeve with others that feel like I remember who I am. The hotel owners send a follow-up that is almost kind. They outline their new policy that forbids any staffer from offering boarding pass verification and require the removal of all hotel brands from proximity to travel documents. They say they have added cameras to cover the drawers. They send a photograph of a sign on the desk that reads, "For your safety, we do not handle travel documents." My daughter sees it and laughs at the way changing one word safety to convenience changes the posture of a room. She is learning the same language I speak by instinct. That script is power, and the verbs you choose can reverse a current. My mother, who keeps her own records in a ledger that smells faintly of cardamom from a bag she once stored nearby, tells me she liked the way I used soft hands and hard paper. Dignity, she says, spooning Gajar halwa into a dish the week after, steam fogging her glasses. In court or at a counter, it makes men uncertain. I wasn't in court, I say, but I know what she means. She sits across from me at the table that wobbles unless you put a torn postcard under the left leg. Light falling across her face like a glaze. The paper says I already left, she says suddenly, and looks at me from under those glasses, eyes laughing. I groan and throw a napkin at her. My daughter makes the dolphin leap with her hand above the table, a silent arc. The apartment smells like ghee and orange and the faint ghost of sunblock from a bottle that lives near the door. Our lives resize to fit better inside themselves. 3 months out, a small deposit appears in my account from the travel insurance. I had forgotten I filed that piece. I screenshot it, label it, move it to a folder where all the loose ends sit until they are not ends. I close the dispute with the bank with a gracious note to Sonia. I keep Eleni's last email in a folder I call People Who Did Their Job So Well I Wanted to Stand Up at My Desk. I write a one-line postcard to the hotel owner. Thank you for enforcing your new policy. Compliance is hospitality. It is not a threat or a compliment. It is a map. On a cold day, much later, I take my daughter to the ferry terminal at home because she wants to. Watch ships open their mouths and swallow trucks. The wind off the water is a knife with a friendly handle. We buy hot chocolate in paper cups and stand with our scarves flapping like flags on a small nation. She asks if we can go back to Santorini one day, and I say yes. Because none of this was about a place being bad, only about a man using a drawer wrong. The smell around us is metal and sea and a hint of diesel. The light is the color of pewter. A gull invents a new laugh, and the rubber soles of people's shoes make that small squeak. That always makes me think of the word compliance. We both laugh because it's a strange word to think on a pier. My life is small and precisely kept. Dates written in the margin. Receipts folded and unfolded like small prayers. A pen with a nick in the clip that catches on certain papers and reminds me to slow down. The day of the airport sits in my mind as an object with clean edges. No shouting. A desk, a stamp, a window of blue, a series of verbs that turned a room. And the line that once felt like a trap feels now like a thing I can put on the table and say. With a different weight, 2 people who think paper can erase a person. The paper says, I already left. If this story helped you breathe steadier at a counter, share it with one person who needs the spine. And if you want the letter templates I used, reply Santorini and I'll send them over.